Okay, so the next definition that we're working on is called frame profile. And frame profile is, the word frame is pretty self-explanatory. Profile, however, is less so in the sense that if you look at like an old stamp, you'll have the profile of someone's face on the stamp. That's what you're seeing when you look at a frame profile. It shows the entire outside exterior perimeter of what the frame looks like. And generally the jamb and the head profile of a frame, they look the same regardless of what's being worked on. There's no difference between them, except in the situation of double egress, where there would be a difference in what the profile would look like because of the contra swing, reverse type of swing of a double egress opening. So according to SDI, the definition is visual description of a frame member, typically referred to as cased opening, single rabbet, double rabbet, and double egress, referred to individual description for detail. Sure. So what goes hand in hand with the frame profile description is also the definitions of the different piece parts of a frame. So when you look at the profile, you'll have areas, and each of those areas are defined. The frame profiles that they show in the SDI glossary don't include what a drywall profile would typically look like, and that's important to incorporate that into the description because there is a very subtle difference or change to the difference between a drywall and a masonry frame. So why don't we switch to the screen view and we will study cased, single rabbet, double egress, and then we'll define all the different piece parts of that as well. So let's do that now.
If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video.
Okay, so here we go. So what they're showing us is frame profile, visual description of a frame member, typically referred to as cased opening, single rabbet, and double egress. Okay, so obviously the most common is going to be double rabbet. You're going to have an area here where the door can sit in, and also an area here where a door could sit in. And these rabbets are either equal or unequal. In my personal experience, unequal is more common. And if I had to choose to forever use one, I would probably forever want to use equal rabbet, because that would allow me to hang an 1 3/4 thick door in either end of this frame. Historically, however, unequal rabbet is more common for the manufacturers that I've distributed for. And this rabbet would be 1 15/16 for an 1 3/4 thick door, and this rabbet would be 1 9/16 for an 1 3/8 thick door. Now, manufacturers would make unequal rabbet frames so that they don't have to change the programming on their press brake in order to accommodate whatever door thickness you're hanging in that frame, and they'll either just prep this side of the frame or this side of the frame for the hinges and strike sort of preparation. However, I have encountered more often than the need to hang an 1 3/8 door in the other side of that frame, I have had the need to take a right hand and turn it into a right hand reverse. Well, when you've got an 1 9/16 rabbet on the pull side of that frame, you're not going to get an 1 3/4 thick door hung in there. So I would probably like to go with an equal rabbet frame. And that scenario does occur in the sense of, not too long ago I had a client who had an in-swing door, and I think it was a right hand, and just wanted to swing that door out of his shop. And it was an equal rabbet frame, and we were able to supply them with a continuous hinge, and a rim exit device. So voila, problem solved. Now, you can see that there are two rabbits on a double rabbit frame. Well, if you go with a single rabbit frame, you could probably guess there would be just one rabbit. And the difference between a single and a double rabbit is going to be primarily for aesthetic reasons. But in the world of hollow metal, single rabbit frames are not common, not typical. I can't think of a solid reason that you would use a single rabbit frame other than it being an aesthetic decision, or the reason that we use single rabbit is because we're forced to. And what I mean by that is the wall thickness or the jam depth is so small, you literally cannot create this bend here. So we've got a client that buys from us like 3 1/4 jam depth frames, and those are single rabbit because there's no room left for a double rabbit frame, and that works out just fine. So this face equals this face plus this. Well, this face is this plus this. Let's before we go to cased and double egress, let's define these pieces. And actually, yeah, right here, I was going to say on the same page. So you have the return. Our frame profiles don't show a backbend return, but they do here. That's a feature of a drywall style frame, and that allows the drywall frame, which is used in construction where the wall is already up, to slide over the drywall more easily and not tear the paper covering over the drywall. So if it's a drywall frame, you'll probably have a backbend return. If it's a masonry frame, you will probably not have a backbend return. And let me rephrase that. If you have a backbend on your frame, it's not a masonry frame, it's a drywall frame. Return. And that is generally 1/2 inch, except in the case of 5 3/4 jam depth, where that's going to be 7/16. 7/16 is what that's going to be, because we're going to maintain a 4 7/8 throat. And then we have a face, generally 2 inch, but it can be smaller. It can be 1 3/4, 1.5 inch, probably all the way down to about maybe 7/8, 1 inch, something like that. Back to your rabbit, either 1 9/16 or 1 15/16, depending on the door thickness. The projection of the stop is general. This is the stop face. It's generally 5/8. That's called the soffit, and the soffit is jam depth minus rabbits is what it is. So that would be your soffit, and it's onto the soffit that you apply hardware like weather stripping or strikes for rim exit devices. Coordinators, parallel arm brackets is where you'll install all of this. And then we just return with the same definitions. So double rabbit, single rabbit, aesthetic, or you're forced to use a single rabbit. Cased opening frame, that's going to be just when you have an opening and you need to finish it off. The edge of the wall is going to have to be finished off, and a hollow metal cased opening frame is typical. Or you're going to install a door into it that is generally a door that cannot work with a stop. So you remove the stop of a double rabbit frame and you have a cased opening frame. Prime examples of that are going to be double acting doors, is where you're going to see cased opening frames. Or if it's a restaurant, you'll have one of those lightweight doors that separate a kitchen from a dining area, those lightweight double acting doors. The brand name that everyone knows, Eliason, comes to mind. Other people make them, but they're the name that most people would know. Those are going to be hung in cased opening frames. You've got a double acting wood door with bomber 3029 hinges, cased opening frame. Whether it be hollow metal or wood, you need some way to trim that off. Now, double egress is fun because this is the jam. Well, this is a jam, a hinge jam, obviously. And let's pull up our good old paint program here. You're going to have one jam on the double egress is going to look like this. You're going to have the other jam on the double egress is going to look like that. Okay, so your doors are going to fit in here. Your hinge knuckle is going to be here, and that door is going to swing out. Your hinge knuckle is going to be here, and that is going to swing in. Okay, now what's interesting is the header looks like this on one side, but then looks like this on the other side. So right in the center of the opening is where these two ends are forced to mate face to face, and then yes, you've got to blank off this part of that jam and this part of that jam in order for all that to work together. But that's what that looks like. But the definitions of the components are the same. Generally, what you're going to have is an 1 3/8 face here and a 2 5/8 face here, because this would be the 2-inch dimension here. Left-hand reverse is pretty common for double egress. Doesn't have to be that, but pretty typical. In terms of frame profiles, you do get into the conversation about frame members, head, jamb, mullions, sills, but they're all going to observe these basic type of categories of frame profile. Now you'll have derivatives, to use that same word a second time, of these openings, and let me show you what I mean by that. All right, technical manual, Curry's technical manual, probably somewhere in here. Here would be a special derivative. This is probably flood-resistant frame. Okay, so this is going to be what's probably going to start out as a cased opening frame, and then they're going to apply this massive stop with this huge piece of neoprene or silicone insert into it. So a derivative, a cased opening frame that's been turned into a double rabbet frame. You're also going to see thermal break frames as well. Yeah, thermal break frame. Right. Yeah. So again, single rabbet, double rabbet, but just a derivative where this half of the jam, or the head, never makes actual metal contact to this component. There is a rigid plastic insert in there that keeps that metal from transmitting the loss of energy through there. So thermal break or a curved frame would be similar to that as well. Again, just a derivative. And then, of course, when it comes to frame profile, you're always going to have minimum and maximum values. You can only go so small on a frame before the tooling won't allow you to make these bends. And then in terms of the maximum jam depth, I think I've done something in the range of 18 or 20 inch in the past. It's a really big frame. You can see that they've got these type of flanges that are back here, and that's intended to help with the wall construction or some sort of look that's being attempted to achieve on the wall with the sheetrock, or stucco in this case they call it. So lots of derivatives of that stuff, but again, it all pretty much comes back to single, double rabbet, cased opening frame, double egress. Frame products, that's the next definition. Let's move on to there.
Thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up. Please subscribe and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.